Hello, this video is about TOK, Theory of Knowledge. What is it? TOK is an unusual subject, so people are commonly curious about what it is. It sounds kind of cool, but it's not immediately obvious what it's about. Students want to know it before they start the course because they may be anxious to start something they don't fully understand. Well, honestly, as it happens, many students don't understand what the heck TOK is, even after doing it for a couple of years. And let's be entirely honest here, many teachers don't understand what TOK is either. They will frequently pretend like they do, by the way, but that's merely an attempt to save face in uncomfortable situations. So this video is meant to explain what TOK is. Simple as that. I will give you a couple of examples of things that are not TOK, then I will tweak them a little and turn them into things that are TOK. And that's how you'll understand the difference. It all becomes clear once you understand one important distinction. There are questions and statements about the world, and there are questions and statements about our knowledge about the world. For example, Daria went out for a walk. Alexey asks her, "What did you see outside?" Daria replies, "I saw a huge dog." This is a conversation about the world. Alexey is interested to know what's happening outside. Daria reports that there's a large dog. It's not a TOK conversation. Compare this to another example. Daria went out and Alexey asks, "What did you see outside?" Daria says, "I saw a huge dog." Alexey asks, "How do you know that what you saw was a huge dog?" Daria thinks a little and says, "I can't be absolutely certain, but what I saw was a creature with 4 legs. It was canine looking, whatever that means. And I relied on my past experience, which tells me that if you run into something like that in the city, it's most probably a dog." This conversation is no longer about the world. This is a conversation about Daria's knowledge of the world. Daria and Alexey are having a TOK conversation. So let's look at some more examples of things you normally study in other subjects and try to tweak these examples so that they become more TOK. Most questions you discuss in other school subjects are questions about the world. For example, what is the circumference of a circle? What is the acceleration of a free-falling object? What is the relationship between aggregate supply and aggregate demand? When did Napoleon capture Moscow? All these questions are about various aspects of the world. These are questions about circles, free-falling objects, financial behavior of people, events of the past. But they're not questions about knowledge. Let's do a little something and turn them into questions about knowledge. Let's see. One of the questions was, what is the circumference of a circle? It's a question about the world, not a knowledge question. We know from mathematics that the circumference of a circle equals 2 pi into radius. That's still a statement about the world. But how do we know that c equals 2 pi into r? Once we slap "how do we know" before our claim, it suddenly stops being a question about the world and becomes a question about knowledge. I call it a dirty trick. But this question is still not a good TOK question, so let's keep thinking. How do we know that c equals 2 pi into r? Well, it's a theorem that has been deduced from some axioms that were accepted without proof. The process of mathematical proof is based on deductive reasoning, where all new statements follow with certainty from previously accepted ones. This leads me to the following question. What is the role of deductive reasoning in constructing mathematical proofs? Now, this is a knowledge question, something that can be discussed in TOK. Another one of our questions was, what is the acceleration of a free-falling object? It's a question about the world, not about knowledge. I remember from physics that the acceleration of a free-falling object, at least on Earth, is 9.8 meters per second per second. But how do we know that? By using the dirty trick of slapping "how do we know" before our claim, we turn it into a question about knowledge. But it is still not generic enough to be a good TOK question. Let's see. We establish physical laws like this one through the scientific method. We conduct experiments and carefully collect our observations. They become the experimental evidence that we use to support a theory. So this brings up several questions. For example, what is considered sufficient evidence for a scientific law? This is a knowledge question, generic enough to be discussed in TOK. Another question was, when did Napoleon capture Moscow? From school history, I remember that this happened on September 14th, 1812. But how do we know that? There's our dirty trick right there. Well, arguably, in an attempt to be objective, historians use a variety of sources and compare a variety of perspectives to arrive at their own historical interpretation of the past, trying their best to make it as unbiased as possible. It does raise some questions, however. For example, to what extent is it possible for knowledge of the past to be objective? Now, this is no longer about Napoleon. This is about general principles of acquiring historical knowledge. It's a knowledge question that can be discussed in a TOK class. So, to recap, TOK is based on discussing knowledge questions. But what are knowledge questions? The IBTOK guide describes 3 key characteristics of a knowledge question. First, they are questions about knowledge. This is opposed to questions about the world. Second, knowledge questions draw on abstract concepts such as evidence, objectivity, deductive reasoning, and so on. They are no longer questions about circles and Napoleons. They are questions about the general principles of knowledge that are not limited to particular problems or situations. Finally, they are usually contestable. It means that they don't have a clear yes or no answer, and they often invite several perspectives or points of view. In other words, and I'm taking this from the official IBTOK guide, knowledge questions are contestable questions about knowledge that draw on abstract concepts. Now, in the last part of the video, let's check your understanding. I will give you several questions or statements, and your task is to decide if these are TOK or not TOK. Every day the sun sets in the west. People want to buy a product when it comes in an attractive package. You can never be 100% certain about something. The sum of angles in a triangle is equal to 180 degrees. 2 opposite beliefs cannot be true at the same time. Experimental evidence is a good reason to accept something as true. And Picasso's paintings are beautiful. Pause the video now to think about your responses for a minute before you continue watching. My answers would be: the first statement is about the sun, it's not about knowledge. The second statement is about behavior of people, not knowledge, psychology, not TOK. The fourth statement is about triangles, but not knowledge. Statements 3, 5, and 6, I think, are statements about knowledge. I will leave the last one about Picasso unanswered because it's a tricky one. Tell me what you think in the comments below the video. We in Themantic Education have a range of wonderful resources to support teachers and students of TOK. We have a brand new TOK textbook, a range of downloadable resources, many of them free, a TOK blog, and a Facebook group for TOK teachers. Please click on the link to explore our website. Thank you for watching. See you next time.